I was recently trolling YouTube, as one does, and came across a 1940 film about introducing people to dial telephones. It's pretty typical 1940s style propaganda and centers around a family, a mother, father, daughter, and their living grandfather, as they all get used to the idea of their telephone having a dial. This must seem inconceivable to someone born after the invention of smartphones, but to someone like me, who first learned phone numbers with letters in them, it's not too much of a stretch. I'll put a link in the description below. 1940 heralded the end of an era when using a telephone required verbally communicating with an operator who would connect your call. Now, thanks to the magic of modern technology, electricity would do most of the work connecting the call. All you had to do was dial in the number that corresponded with the person you wanted to reach. After you looked it up in a printed directory that had been created for your area. Oh yeah, and then after, of course, you got a dial tone. Miraculously, you would be connected directly to the person you wanted to speak with, and no one else would be on the line, except in places where the lines were limited and shared. So modern. Of course, there's a whole movie about the era of shared party lines, but I'll save that message about Doris Day, Rock Hudson, and the 1959 movie Pillow Talk for another time. This film, about 1940s conversion to dial phones, seems quaint. I mean, we don't even think about an actual dial on a phone anymore, even if we do still use the language of dialing and calling, which is language that comes entirely from this earlier era. But then, how very quickly did people get used to dial phones? Dial telephones became the new normal until the touch-tone phone, of course, and so on. We adapt and we grow. Right now, we're in the midst of multiple layers of trying to understand what normal is. I hear a lot of people speak about a return to normal or getting back to normal. At the same time, I'm concerned that being focused on normal might just lead us down an even more dangerous path than the ones we currently navigate. There was a time when it was normal to use an outhouse. It was normal to have spittoons handy. It was normal to only address women by their husbands' names. And it was normal to exclude people of African descent from public life. This raises the question of whether or not our modern concepts of normal are part of our modern challenge. We have a fixation with what is normal in Western culture that definitely comes from some of our religiously based historical obsessions that turn scripture into weapons of cultural shame. Too much norm shaming focuses on appearances that adhere to perceptions that are heavily produced and curated, edited and trimmed for protection for a narrow concept of normal. Emerging from the tail end of the industrial age into the information age, where information has been both knowledge and entertainment, and where we are trained to consume our environment, consume our interactions, and to consume so much of our modern world, the concept of normal is a defining factor in how well that system works. A normal home will allow someone to have a normal family, resulting in normal children, leading to a normal life with a normal retirement and a normal death. Obviously, the public health Russian roulette of coronavirus is changing everything, as is the continuing implosion of our natural environment. Still, our impulse is to look for a new normal. something that we can understand and then likely consume as easily as we did our lives beforehand. But folks, we are at the dawn of the post-information age. We may want to consider a new strategy. Is there maybe some other way to think about this? Think back to the dial telephone. It only took about 25 years and we had advanced to a new normal of touch-tone telephones. Only 15 years after that, the technology was being adapted to be digital, and then 5 to 8 years after that came the first smartphones. What if instead of seeking the new normal, we worked to be receptive to the most functional? What if in emerging from the crisis of the coronavirus, instead of seeking a new normal, we worked to reveal and cherish what allows us all to be most whole? Think about it directly in relationship to the church. Through this period, we have discovered some new and exciting ways to know each other. We've found new and exciting ways to care about each other. And we've also learned about our shortcomings before and during this time. We have an opportunity to emerge from this period even wiser and more adaptable than we were going in. The greatest gift of all is that we will emerge from this time knowing that we can be vulnerable and that we can always afford to be vigilant, adaptable, pliable, nimble, and ready. I'll be frank with you. I don't want to go back to normal. I want desperately to always have the capacity to grow and evolve. It's not by any means that I want to exist in a constant crisis. In fact, I had the realization this week that I've only known ministry during times of crisis. No, I just want to be open to the possibilities. I feel like if we get stuck on norms, we miss the opportunity to imagine what could be. As justice, equity-loving people, Unitarian Universalists understand that we should never speak of, think of, or treat people in terms of there being some kind of normal. That language is offensive to the point of being hate speech. I hope we all recognize and work hard in every setting to be as offended by that word as we would any other kind of hate speech. And I think, like our work decolonizing ourselves, our tradition and our world, we need to take a similar lens to the very concept of norms. Standards, consistencies, regularities, anticipations, healths. The key difference between these words and the language of norms is the way in which normal is weaponized and presented as a barrier socially, medically, culturally, when something doesn't adhere to some arbitrary pattern that is accepted by a dominant social location. Normal is the otherizing language of the in-group. Yeah, I have no interest in finding a new normal. Sure, I'd like some consistency, and I'd love to be able to anticipate the world a little bit. And I want to be capable, emotionally, physically, financially, spiritually, capable of receiving all that existence has to offer me, good and bad. The work of faith community in this equation is to constantly feed us all in such a way that it is less about what is normal and more about what is nourishing. Consistency is good, and so is having enough stimulation and space to grow. We can hold on to the same worship format for 20 years, but only if within that format we find the room to explore and blossom and learn. We can sing the same hymns over and over again, but only if we also learn to hear them anew each time with each gift of each unique performance. I'm hopeful about the future. In fact, I'm excited about it. Letting go of my own expectations around what is normal has unleashed a torrent of creative possibility within me. It has also made me want to find ways that church or gathering can be a cradle and an incubator for us all to be whole. Whatever your specific faith tradition or practice may be, I hope that you're able to find comfort in it. Not in the fact that it represents normal to you, but because it holds you as you and this world change and grow. May you be whole.